And instead of doing something like +2ing his Jace to be able to keep the Jace alive through a single attack from the Vending Click, or even bouncing the Click, so that at least he won't be able to be attacked by it, he just let it get murdered.
What line of play would justify that decision? I mean...
my honest answer is a line of play that spaces what's going on and goes, oops, I can't believe I did that. I've been known to make that line of play many times.
As have we all. So we got the players shuffling up for Game 3 of this matchup. Let's see. So at this point, what we're looking at in terms of... Now, we did have the play of Matt Lilly to put away Dark Confidant on Chromox to get the Bitter Blossom early. Do you think that if he had switched that and cast the Dark Confidant that we might have a different game at this point?
Not really, no. I think that it's possible that if he had held off entirely until later, that would have been maybe better. But as it was, I have no problem with him doing a fast attempt at a 2-drop. And I think that in this matchup, Bitter Blossom is probably better than Dark Confidant, simply because Bitter Blossom is less it's less fragile.
Yep, Swords to Plowshares is a big player in this matchup, and you can't Swords of Bitter Blossom. You may want to, you may wish you could, you may ask a judge if that's all right, but it's not.
Okay. We got like 15 minutes left in this round, so they've actually got a fair amount of time to be able to finish this.
Yeah.
They're a little bit behind pace if this pace continues, but I think that they're probably... Both of these players are interested in continuing on with the match finished. Draws in general, especially at this stage of the game, are the functional equivalent of losses. Let's pretend that they get a draw, an unintentional draw at this point, right? Then they go into the next round, and they cannot double draw in. So they have to play. And if they lose, they might just be out of it.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where sometimes taking the draw is the correct play. And goodness knows when you're playing a deck that doesn't mind having a long game, that wants to gain incremental advantage, sometimes you just can't help it and draws occur. But these players are definitely going to be mindful of time limits. They're definitely going to try to finish and one of them get the win rather than running the risk of drawing out and not being able to finish in the top 8.
Looking at their hands here.
Yep.
Matt, Chris says he's keeping. Matt goes land go. That was a popular land that Matt's playing right there for a while. It has been, I think, a little eclipsed since we had the return to full art lands in Zendikar.
I would love to see more of those. Those were just about the coolest thing ever. So
Tundra from Chris VanMeter. See a brainstorm at the end of the turn. Now, this is occasionally correct, but usually incorrect.
What makes it so?
One of the things that was explained to me a long time ago by Ian DeGraff was that the plays in Legacy are so powerful that it's often better just to main phase brainstorm to get into those plays. But in addition, it's often better just to wait to brainstorm until you have appropriate cards that you don't want anymore to shuffle away. So if you end of turn brainstorm, then draw, you're only getting rid of one card.
Right. And that does, again, as you'd mentioned earlier, Adrian, seem to benefit players with a deeper understanding of how they want their deck to play out.
I mean, just because you can cast it doesn't mean you should cast it.
Exactly. So we have Matt Lilly tapping out for Dark Confidant.
Spell Snare would be very good. I see it. There it is. Force of Will? No. Untap for Chris VanMeter. Lays his second land of some kind.
Draws Jace
Wasteland,
the Mind Sculptor.
Killing the Black Source. I think he'll say go. Matt Lilly untaps.
So now we have Matt Lilly.
Another fetch land there. I think I see Sword, Stoneforge Mystic, and I couldn't tell what the other one is. He asks if it resolves. Chris VanMeter is not running Stifle, so this will be fine.
Yep.
Are we going to see another scrub land? Nope, we get a basic land, a plains.
Seems the conservative play, reasonable.
Oh, he's thinking scrubland. I think he's going to get scrubland.
Let's see. Looks like he thought about Underground Sea for... Nope.
Tundra.
There's the Tundra. So it looks like CVM has a grip of Brainstorm, Jace, Tundra, Tropical Island. Matt Lilly passes back to cut, which is a requirement at this RAL. And Stoneforge Mystic.
That's right. I had heard a rumor that many years ago when they made cutting a requirement, that it was done because Japanese players were regularly not cutting their opponents because it was viewed as an insult to cut your opponent. I don't know if that's an urban legend or if that's true.
That's the first I've heard of it, but I can't say I'm entirely surprised.
The story I had heard was that certain less savory players were stacking their decks against Japanese players because they knew they wouldn't be cut.
That is definitely something that as judges we would like to not see happen.
Yeah.
So we have looks like an end of turn Brainstorm for Chris VanMeter.
Like I said, that could be an urban legend. Brainstorm, lots of mana,
Yep.
untapped.
Draws the Jason the Mind Sculptor that he put back. Chris VanMeter with a Jita in his hand.
Goes Swords to Plowshares.
Seems just fine.
If we think about the effect of Chris VanMeter's Brainstorm there, for example, it dug him one card deeper. He basically made a Whispers of the Muse with his Brainstorm.
Not the worst of cards, but definitely not anywhere as good as Brainstorm.
Yeah, Brainstorm is way better than that. We see another fetch land, a Delta from Matt Lilly. If Chris VanMeter needed to find something then, that's just fine though.
Sure. So we have Chris, it looks like, with a Mutavault in the grip. We know he has the Jace the Mind Sculptor. Looks like he's thinking for a moment, not sure what he's going to do next. Confirming Matt has 4 cards in the grip. So it looks like, yep, we're going to see the Mutavault from Chris VanMeter.
And a Jite, leaving the Tundra open. Perhaps a Spell Snare back. Perhaps Spell Pierce. Perhaps a Swords of Plowshares. We see a fetch here. Polluted Delta.
So let's see. So Matt Lilly goes for Underground Sea here.
Now he has all 3 colors that his deck can provide.
Now at this point, Chris has the Jita.
Main phase Snapcaster Mage.
Snapcasters.
I think there's a Thoughtseize in the yard, or is it just a Brainstorm?
I don't believe we've seen Thoughtseize this game. So Matt is going to try to rebuy on Brainstorm. Perfectly reasonable.
I see Stifle. I see 2 blue cards I can't make out. Double Stifle Force of Will?
Seems just fine. And it's interesting to see...
Is that triple Swords to Plowshares?
I believe it is.
Swords to Plowshares, in most situations, is one of the best removal spells of all time. All of this happens at the end of the turn because Snapcaster into Brainstorm, just a ridiculous possible play. Where in standard, Snapcaster Ponder is at least a little bit of an investment. Doing it at the end of your opponent's turn, it goes way beyond the Silver Girl Adept comparisons that people use otherwise.
Yeah, it costs you nothing. You get to rebuy. You're paying blue 1 for a 2/1 flash with Brainstorm.
Pretty ridiculous.
Staple to it. Yeah, that is absurd. So CVM untaps. He's got 2 Tundra, Mutavault, Jita. His grip looks like it has a couple lands and a Jace the Mind Sculptor in it. Is that also Elspeth? Yep, we do see an Elspeth Knight Errant in the hand of Chris VanMeter. Chris drops Island. Now at this point, equipping with... Nope, we're just going to see the Elspeth. And then we're going to see the Force of Will. That's unfortunate.
Tapped out, Chris VanMeter is now susceptible to anything that Matt Lilly might do at him, with the exception of if he can fight with Force of Will. In for 2.
Yep. So we now have...
Says go. He's got nothing to do.
Matt 18, Chris 16.
There's 2 land and some other stuff in Chris's hand.
Let's see. Do we see a... Okay. So Jason the Mind Sculptor down, which it looks as though Matt would be pretty... I don't think we have a Force of Will for Matt Lilly.
Jace.
And there is the Jace.
Oh my goodness. Is there no answer there? Is there a Force of Will and that's it? Or is there just no answer? There is just no answer. Jace
Hot
resolves.
diggity.
I predict we're going to see a Stifle. Oh, maybe not for that. Maybe not for a Fate Seal.
No, that...
For a Fate Seal, I think he might let it happen.
Think so?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Matt does seem to like using his Stifles aggressively.
The difference is Brainstorm gains card advantage, so using a Stifle doesn't change much other than weakening the effect of the card. Whereas the Fate Seal ability might not actually accomplish anything. And I think we might be having... and there he goes. Lets it resolve.
Yep. Chris VanMeter chooses to put that on the bottom. So it begs to wonder, what would Chris not want to see in this position?
I mean, maybe it was a land. It could very easily just be a land. It could be something like a Dark Confidant, which might get out of control.
Sure. So Matt Lilly's still with those 3 swords stranded in his hand. Swings Snapcaster Mage at Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Says go.
So Chris VanMeter draws, looks like a Swords to Plowshares.
Right here? Or in the middle? Alright, sorry.
Okay. So if you hear any other rumbling in the background, we do have our draft champion right behind us for a moment.
Okay, so we see Chris 5 lands up, Jace the Mind Sculptor, and Jitta. Hasn't really done anything with the Jitta this game.
He hasn't had an opportunity, though. You know,
No, there's
only
been
the
no
Mutavaults,
window.
and that's a dangerous thing to do. To expend 4 of your mana to maybe have something edicted or swords.
Which in this particular situation would be a very strong likelihood.
We see Stoneforge. Does that work? It might just work.
Entirely possible.
Wow.
And there's the Force. Is that...
I think I see a Batterskull, swords in Matt Lilly's hand.
on 3 lands? Awkward. So Matt Lilly with 4 in the grip. Chris has a Snapcaster. And ships the turn back to Matt. Matt draws.
And he comes,
cracks in.
Snappy coming on in. Will we see a Snapcaster from Chris VanMeter?
Does seem like a strong play to have. Or
Swords
just
to Plowshares
Swords to
works.
Plowshares.
Goodbye,
Seems
Snapcaster.
fine.
Hopefully he will remember to take that in the remove from game, because that is not in his graveyard.
Nope, that is not where swords creatures go. So CVM untaps. Looks like he draws Misty Rainforest. Ticks up with Jace. And let's see what he does with it. Leaves it on the top.
That's bad news. When they let you keep it, very bad news.
I used to love playing Jace at FNMs and PTQs and just, no, you can have that. That's okay. I don't care about that.
Dark Confidant, which I think is maybe what Chris left on top, and I think he's got swords for it.
So let's see. We have...
I think we're going to see Vendilion click.
Oh, that'll carry Ajita just fine. And he actually... Wow, he lets it resolve.
Yikes. Triple swords, Force of Will, Batterskull.
And all of 3 lands to do not very much with it.
The Umezawa's Jite, if Chris has any way to stop one Swords to Plowshares, the Umezawa's Jite will kill Dark Confidant.
That would definitely be a good way for Chris to start putting this game on lockdown. I mean, his board position already looks very domineering here, but if Matt could somehow dig himself out, get a couple lands off Dark Confidant.
But remember that Jace can just bounce Dark Confidant as well.
That's true. I just get so excited thinking about brainstorming things and fate sealing people that bouncing never really occurs.
I mean, 4 abilities. That's a lot of
they're
abilities.
all good. I mean, a lot of respect for the people who work at WotC R&D. They've been doing a fantastic job, but 4 loyalty abilities, really? We have
They wanted to push it.
Confidant?
They wanted to push it.
Oh, they pushed it.
Yes.
They definitely pushed it. So let's
Dark
see.
Confidant no longer able to race like it was once able to. Facing down a different invitational card, Tiago Chan, in the form of Snapcaster Mage. Vendilion Click also on Chris VanMeter's side of the table. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here at the Star City Games Live Open Series in St. Louis. I'm joined by Nicholas, I can't remember, is it Sabin?
Sabin, yes.
Nicholas Sabin, who was our head judge yesterday at the Standard Open, the Standard Open.
Yep.
And today he is not our head judge, but merely, so to speak, a judge.
Well, always a judge and not the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, unfortunately, as is often confused. We see a Swords for Matt Lilly to shut off Jitta on the Snapcaster Mage. Does Chris re-equip here?
I think he probably did that if he did it properly during the combat step. It's not a stretch to think that, he did the timing properly.
Nope, certainly not.
But he did not do the timing properly. He did it in response.
Live Jitta, live Jace against 3 lands, some swords, and a Batterskull.
There are no combination of cards that Matt Lilly can draw here that he can win with. Chris VanMeter would have to give up the game in a spectacular fashion. He'd have to try to lose from this position.
So it looks like for Matt Lilly we saw Force of Will, some swords. There's that Batterskull again. Chris VanMeter Fate Seals Matt Lilly. And then we have Mutavault and Click swinging in. And this time Swords is played correctly. Although it's not going to do a great spot of good. Matt Lilly still takes 2. And meanwhile, Jace is just ticking up, getting beefier and beefier. So not only does Matt have to shut down the I'm going to get you with my creatures in my Jitta avenue, he also has to worry about Jace just blowing him out of the game entirely.
Dark Confidant.
No thanks. So Chris VanMeter draws. Ticks up with Jace again. Likes what he sees on the top of Matt Lilly's deck and leaves it there. And
In they come. Another Swords.
oh, how does a Mutavault hold a sword? I don't understand.
How does a squirrel hold a sword?
With its teeth? I mean, obviously, right? So Matt Lilly draws for his turn. Marsh Flats. So he is now Matt Lilly is at the point where he could just try to run out Batterskull with nothing behind it, but Jace doesn't make that line of play very appealing.
I mean, I think what he just has to do, if his hand is as bad as this, just do it. We are in turn 2 of extra turns now.
Yep. All right, so we're going to see Chris.
I think we're going to see a draw.
Looks like we have Jace the Mind Sculptor on 7 loyalty.
I think that's 11 loyalty.
I see 6, and then
Let's have a check on that as soon as we have an opportunity. How many loyalty that is? Swords to Plowshares on the token.
yep.
It's on 12 loyalty.
Okay. So let's see what Chris has. Is that a swing with the mutable? Matt draws for the turn. His hand is now Stoneforge Mystic and Force of Will. And the concession?
Is it a concession? Did they agree to... Was there a concession or was there a draw there?
Chris VanMeter wins 2-1. Matt Lilly with the concession.
Okay.
So Chris is now still undefeated